In 2024 alone, the United States exported an incredible $318 billion worth of weaponry worldwide, nearly 43% of the world market. Key battlegrounds like Ukraine received a hefty $30 billion, while strategic partners Israel and Taiwan shared between $30 to $50 billion. But strip away these conflict zones, and you're still left with a whopping $238 billion in arms sales. Over 30% of that, yes, a massive $71 billion, was sold to European NATO allies. For the first time in a very long time, Europe became the US main export market, overtaking the Middle East, mainly due to the new spending targets set by NATO and the need to rearm to deter possible further Russian aggression. Earlier this year, we launched a series on how tariff walls and a potential split in the transatlantic arms trade could change both European and American defense markets and militaries. More than 3 million of you watched, and your feedback was incredible. Since then, countless comments have asked for an update. What's actually happened in the 8 months since episode 1? I'm Tuomas, a former officer in the Finnish Defense Forces, and in this episode, we'll look at how Europe's militaries and defense industries have responded to Washington's hardball bullying tactics, tough negotiating, and, at times, outright disrespect since Trump took over. And we'll review whether the outcomes match what we predicted in the series, which was that Europe's domestic defense industry would get a new spring in its step if Europe and its allies looked inward rather than to the US for their equipment. In this episode, we won't cover all the systems we spoke about in our initial episodes, so if you want a more in-depth look at each weapon system and what each nation in particular spent their money on and their European options, you can find that in those episodes in the links down below. Instead, in this episode, we'll take a helicopter view of how European nations have reacted to the chaos caused by the current White House administration, and we'll see whether the US president openly admitting that they'll water down their systems when sold to allies has affected the order streams to the US economy. So apparently, in 2025, bringing a J.D. Vance meme on your phone can get you treated like a dangerous extremist at the US border. Imagine being that Norwegian tourist, thinking you're ready for New York bagels, and boom, border security decides that your meme is a threat to someone's ego. Honestly, it's a good reminder that what's on your devices and what you do online isn't as private as you think. That's why we use CyberGhost VPN. CyberGhost keeps your internet traffic encrypted and private through secure servers in 100+ countries, which means no random airport Wi-Fi, hotel network, or nosy ICE agent can peek at what you're doing. And the fun part? You can change your virtual location to get access to 40+ streaming services, including Netflix, Amazon Prime, and more. And better yet, get way better deals on flights and hotels. Airlines and booking sites in the richer parts of the world love to charge different prices depending on where they think you are. Switching locations with CyberGhost can literally save you hard-earned money on a trip. Scan the QR code on the screen or use the link in the description to grab an 83% discount plus 4 months free. And with a 45-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support, you can try it completely risk-free. First, the big one, the US's flagship export, the F-35. When we wrapped our series, plenty of countries still had it on order, and Europe had spent somewhere around 60 to 80 billion euros on the fighter jet, with a further 20 to 40 billion euros due when orders are delivered. Since then, one European buyer has walked away outright, and several others have either reduced or changed their programs to no longer even consider the F-35. Spain has reallocated the roughly 10 billion it had earmarked for F-35s into the German-French 6th generation program and an additional 25 Eurofighter Typhoons. Switzerland, hit with what became Europe's steepest Trump-era tariff, immediately put its 9 billion F-35 deal under review. Bern is now weighing 3 paths: switch to Sweden's Gripen, if a European engine replaces the current American one, opt for France's Rafale, or stick with the F-35. The debate is very much alive in Switzerland, and it wouldn't be a shock if it ends up as a popular vote. Meanwhile, Portugal, who was also considering the F-35, has decided not to go for the jet at all, rather focusing on upgrading and renewing its older F-16s, and leaning into the new sixth-generation European fighter jet programs while considering Rafale and Gripens. Outside of Europe, India has also outright cancelled their F-35 order and seems to be tilting towards a very questionable deal with Russia to get Su-57s instead. I'm not sure how they're expecting to get the Su-57s when the Russians barely have capacity to keep their own fleet going, and on the back of how badly their newest jets have performed in Ukraine. The stock performance numbers say it all. Lockheed Martin has lost 21% of its value since last October amid constant negative PR from the current administration, while Europe's jet makers are surging. Airbus is up 41%, Dassault up 21%, and Sabre Aviation is up a ridiculous 109%. It's an even bigger problem for the US that many former and current US fighter jet customers are now picking Europe's sixth-generation projects instead of the American one. One reason for this is likely that Trump said the US should sell watered-down versions to allies, and another is how extremely expensive the F-35 has been to maintain in comparison to other aircraft. Belgium is expected to join Spain, France, and Germany in FCAS. Sweden, which first looked at making its own jet, now seems likely to join GCAP Tempest with the UK, Italy, and Japan. More European countries are also signing on as observers to one or both programs. Bottom line, the big R&D money Europe sent to the US in the F-35 era probably won't be coming to Washington this time. Next up, air defense. But before we talk about that, if you've liked what you've seen so far, it would be an honor if you hit that subscribe button to help us reach 100,000 subscribers. After the F-35, the United States' biggest export success is the Patriot air defense system. Its effectiveness isn't in doubt. Ukraine has shown it can intercept almost anything thrown at it. The problem for Raytheon, Patriot's main supplier, is reliability of supply. When a US president can halt shipments at a moment's notice, as we've seen with interceptors held back from Ukraine for political games, it puts off prospective buyers. Watching missiles hit hospitals and civilian targets while interceptors sit in limbo leaves a terrible impression. Yes, EU countries have stepped in to purchase Patriots for Ukraine, but the sense of being strong-armed is hard to shake. Any short-term bump for the US economy from European purchases, seen in 2024 and 25, will likely be offset as customers look harder at Europe's own, very capable alternatives, SAMP-T, IRIS-T, Sabre, and NASAMS. Price isn't the sticking point here. European systems are significantly cheaper than Patriot, and SAMP-T broadly matches its range and complexity. The result? The three European systems that have performed well in Ukraine are now big winners on the export market. Since late last year, Denmark, France, Italy, and Croatia have either ordered SAMP-T or signaled renewed interest. NASAMS has also surged. The Netherlands, Belgium, Norway, Taiwan, Lithuania, and Denmark have ordered or leased new batteries. In the same period, orders for Germany's IRIS-T family have come from Denmark, Bulgaria, Austria, Estonia, Latvia, Sweden, Switzerland, and Slovenia, choosing European kit over US alternatives. Even the newer British Sabre is drawing attention, with the $4 billion sale to Poland already moving forward. In short, with competitive pricing and proven performance, Europe's air defense options are now setting the pace. Let's look at how this shows up in company stock and revenue values. Diehl Defense, which makes IRIS-T, isn't publicly traded, but reports that revenue rose 21% from 2023 to 24 and should grow more again this year. Kongsberg, maker of NASAMS, is up about 33% since the US election. Eurosam builds SAMP-T and is part of MBDA, which also makes Sabre. MBDA shares have climbed a staggering 102% in the same period. HIMARS earned its reputation in Ukraine before large-scale jamming changed the game. The lesson wasn't to ditch GPS-guided rockets. It was to build depth, diversify launches, and own the supply chain. That's what Europe is doing now. Poland is pushing its Homar-K line into service fast, giving Warsaw a high-volume launcher it can feed from its own pod and rocket buildup. Germany is fielding GMARS with Rheinmetall, a European take on the two-pod concept that made HIMARS flexible, but with European spares, sustainment, and decision-making. Across the continent, ministries are locking in multi-year buys of guided rockets while expanding explosives and propellant capacity at home. The shift is simple: fewer Atlantic bottlenecks, more sovereign volume, and enough pods to absorb jamming losses while switching to alternate targeting from drones and passive sensors, something Poland, Germany, and Norway are well underway with. HIMARS is produced by the aforementioned Lockheed Martin, which, as mentioned earlier, has dipped around 20% in value since the US election, while Rheinmetall, who produces GMARS among many other things, is up a quite frankly ridiculous 226% since the US election. Hanwha Aerospace, who have licensed their Chunmoo to Poland to make the Homar-K, is also up 137% in the same period. On classic artillery, Europe is now the benchmark along with South Korea. In the track department, PZH 2000 remains the accuracy and burst fire reference. The Polish KRAB has proven it can be built and sustained at scale with staggering success in Ukraine. And Germany's new RCH 155 combines the box's mobility with a fully automated 155mm turret, slashing crew workload and time on target, and can be put on both a wheeled and a tracked chassis. In the wheeled gun department, the Swedish-British Archer is the shoot and scoot specialist, roll in, fire, multiple rounds simultaneous impact, and be moving again in under 2 minutes. The French Caesar is the export workhorse, light enough for weak bridges and quick ferries, accurate enough that smart 155mm rounds like Bonus and Excalibur really count, and simple to keep running with small crews. The bigger picture is industrial. Europe's artillery ecosystem, shells, fuses, propellant, base bleed, ramjets, precision seekers, has scaled for a long war era, with multiple countries sharing subcomponents so one bottleneck doesn't freeze the whole chain. Tracked for staying power, wheeled for reach and pace, all fed by European depots and parts. Now, I could go on about more systems, naval, other air assets, more companies, and if there's appetite for that, tell me in the comments and I'll expand. But let's shift gears and talk about why European defense stocks have reached unprecedented highs while almost all US names have dropped. Because this isn't only about what's happening in Washington. First, demand. Europe has a real long-term rearmament cycle underway. War next door concentrates minds. Budgets are up, special funds are in place, and procurement plans run for years, not quarters. That means large, predictable backlogs for European companies in military equipment. Investors pay for visibility, and Europe is finally giving them that. Second, policy. NATO's 2% floor is no longer a polite suggestion. It's becoming a baseline, and it looks like it's about to go up even more. On top of that, Brussels and national capitals are pushing Buy European where it makes sense, alongside new continent-wide industrial tools for ammo, energetics, and air defense. When governments say, we'll fund capacity and buy output, markets listen, and when European companies can beat American companies on price while keeping jobs in Europe, there isn't really a question about where to invest. Third, sovereignty and reliability. Allies watched weapons to Ukraine get paused, parts get stuck, and exports get politicized by Trump, Vance, and Hegseth. Add the public talk about watered-down export versions, and buyers start looking for options they can control end-to-end. European kit that's ITAR light or ITAR free, serviced in Europe with European spares and jobs, suddenly becomes worth buying. Fourth, product-market fit. European systems have been combat-proven. IRIS-T, SAMP-T, Archer, Caesar, PZH, KRAB, and so forth. These aren't brochure items anymore. They've done the job under fire in Ukraine. That turns demonstrations into contracts, and contracts into factories running 3 shifts. Higher volumes through existing lines lift margins, which is exactly what stock markets reward. So why are so many US companies down? Part politics, part what military planners call concentration risk. Mixed messaging on exports scare customers and investors. Heavy US reliance on a few very large companies makes share prices vulnerable when orders slip, allies rethink buys, or headlines turn hostile on the clown show in Washington. Add budget fights in the US and uncertainty around export policy with tariffs, and the US arms industry suffering multiplies exponentially. That's not to say that there aren't examples of US companies who are doing really well. Raytheon and Northrop Grumman in particular have been going up and down since Trump came into office and are now on a high. But my prediction is that less European demand, once European supply chains are fully up and running, will hurt them long-term too. Europe is rearming, and its defense industry is finally being prioritized. The cost to the United States could be far higher than anyone in the White House seems to grasp. For decades, the quiet agreement was that America underwrote Europe's security, and Europe, in turn, spent a large share of its defense budgets in the US. If the current hostility toward Europe and NATO continues, that agreement will unravel, and once Europe resets course, competing with a revitalized industrial base that helped define modern warfare will be hard. This is the continent that produced the tank, the jet engine, the helicopter, the strategic bomber, and the flamethrower. Betting against it in the long run would be unwise, and if you want to see why that is, you can find our full series on this subject in the comments and link below. And remember, if you want to travel without being tracked like a meme smuggler and get cheaper hotel and flight deals, CyberGhost VPN is your ticket. Right now, you can grab 83% off plus 4 extra months free, risk-free with a 45-day money-back guarantee with the link in the description. One subscription even covers up to 7 devices, so your whole family who's sending each other JD Vance memes in the family